Imagine hearing the same storm for 3 straight days. Not thunder rolling somewhere out at sea, not a passing shower that clears by morning. The kind of weather that settles in and refuses to leave. Wind scraping against stone walls, salt spray rattling the window glass, waves striking the rocks below with a heavy rhythm that never quite lets the body relax. And somewhere inside that lighthouse, a man still has to eat. The lamp still needs tending. The lens still needs wiping. Fog signals still sound through the darkness whether any ship is nearby to hear them or not. By the middle of the 19th century, the United States alone had hundreds of active lighthouses spread across its coastlines and Great Lakes shores. Most were isolated postings. Supply tenders arrived once a month when weather allowed it. When storms delayed them, keepers simply relied on what remained in storage, which meant they learned to live on food that lasted, food that tolerated damp air, long winters, repetition, not meals made for enjoyment, meals made because the storm did not care whether a man was tired. Salt pork and hard bread. The bread was hard enough to strike against the table, and that was the point. What lighthouse keepers called hard bread and sailors called hardtack had fed isolated workers and naval crews for generations. Flour, water, salt, baked until almost no moisture remained. When stored properly, it lasted for months. The salt pork arrived packed in barrels thick with brine. Preservation mattered more than flavor. Sliced thin and fried slowly beside the stove, the smell filled the room quickly. Salt, smoke, grease settling into old wooden walls. Heavy food, reliable food. Some keepers softened the bread in coffee or broth before eating it. Others simply bit through it as it was. After enough storms, routine mattered more than taste. And after enough winters, chewing slowly became part of the meal itself. Fish chowder. Along the New England coast, fish was one of the few dependable foods when supply boats failed to arrive. Cod and haddock had shaped coastal economies for centuries, but catching fish during storm season rarely looked romantic. Sometimes it meant standing outside before daylight with stiff fingers and wet sleeves while freezing spray drifted across the rocks. The chowder pot often stayed warm for hours near the stove. Fish, potatoes, onion, salt pork drippings, sometimes milk if any remained. Chowder was not considered special food. It was working food, the kind made because it stretched ingredients into something hot enough to carry a man through another shift climbing wet tower stairs. Some bowls were eaten sitting down, others cooled untouched for 20 minutes while the lamp needed attention upstairs. That happened more often than people probably imagine. Molasses on brown bread. By the mid-19th century, molasses had become common throughout much of the northeastern United States. Cheap, filling, shelf-stable, and heavily tied to Atlantic trade routes. Boston brown bread appeared in many coastal kitchens. Dense bread made from rye flour, cornmeal, and molasses. Dark slices cut thick near the stove before dawn. Molasses spread slowly in cold weather. Cheap calories mattered in isolated postings, especially during winters when physical labor started long before sunrise, carrying oil, cleaning glass, hauling supplies up narrow tower stairs while wind pushed against the structure outside. The work itself rarely changed. Only the weather did. Salt cod and potatoes. Salt cod survived almost anything. Dried hard, packed tightly, capable of lasting for months without refrigeration. Before soaking, it smelled sharp and carried the stiffness of cured wood. But throughout the Atlantic world, from New England to Newfoundland to parts of Europe, people relied on it because they had few better options during long seasons away from fresh food. The potatoes mattered just as much. Stored in cool lower rooms beneath the tower, they lasted deep into winter if kept dry enough. Together, boiled potatoes and salt cod formed the kind of meal that looked plain on the table, but sat heavily in the stomach for hours afterward. That mattered during double watches and rough weather. Simple meals often lasted longest in hard places. Oatmeal with dried fruit. Oatmeal appeared regularly in lighthouse provisions throughout the 19th century because it stretched easily and held warmth well after cooking. Iron pots stayed near the stove while oats thickened slowly over low heat. Dried apples or raisins sometimes went in when available. Other times, there was only salt. Not every meal happened properly at the table. Some were eaten quickly between tasks, some standing near the stove before sunrise, some half finished after another trip upstairs to check the lamp or inspect the weather outside. Over time, meals adapted themselves to the rhythm of the tower. Pickled eggs and crackers. Fresh eggs spoiled quickly in damp coastal conditions. Some keepers preserved them by pickling them in jars alongside other pantry staples. Crackers replaced fresh bread near the end of difficult weather stretches, especially when moisture ruined softer foods too quickly. Meals often became smaller late in the supply month. Less cooking, less variety, fewer fresh ingredients. People stopped expecting much from dinner during long storms. The point was simply to eat enough to continue the next shift. Bean soup with salt fat? Beans appeared almost everywhere. Isolated labor existed. Ships, logging camps, army posts, frontier cabins, lighthouses. They were cheap, filling, and lasted for months in storage. Soup pots remained near the stove for entire days during rough weather. Beans softened slowly beside onion scraps and pieces of preserved fat saved from earlier meals. The same pot was often reheated repeatedly. More water added, more beans added. Stretching food became routine long before people thought of it as hardship. Fried cornmeal mush. Cornmeal stored well when kept dry, which made it common in lighthouse pantries across large parts of the United States. Cooked thick the night before, left to cool. Sliced into dense pieces by morning and fried slowly in leftover grease. Crisp edges, soft center, steam rising into cold rooms before daylight. It was inexpensive food, but filling enough to carry physical work for hours afterward. Some keepers likely ate it standing near the stove while checking whether the weather outside had worsened overnight. In isolated places, mornings often began before a person fully woke up. Smoked herring. The smell lingered in the room long after the meal ended. Smoked herring had been part of North Atlantic food culture for centuries because it traveled well and spoiled slowly. Salty, oily, strong enough that people unfamiliar with it often disliked it immediately. But isolated workers cared more about shelf life than preference. Some keepers ate smoked herring late at night beside bread and tea, while weather observations were written into logbooks under lantern light. Quiet meals during quieter stretches between storms. The tower never fully slept, even when the kitchen did. Tea with evaporated milk and biscuits. Evaporated milk changed isolated kitchens more than most people realized. After the process became commercially successful in the second half of the 19th century, canned milk products began appearing more often in remote supply deliveries. Fresh milk spoiled quickly. Evaporated milk remained usable for months. Tea naturally became part of the routine. Warm cups beside fogged windows. Biscuits growing smaller near the end of the month. Butter disappearing first. People adjusted gradually to shortages, usually without discussing them very much. Stewed apples and bread. Apples stored surprisingly well in cool lower storage rooms if rotated carefully through the season. By late winter, they softened and wrinkled. Nothing was wasted. Sliced into pots with water and cinnamon when available. Eaten warm beside bread while rain tapped against the tower outside. Small sweetness mattered in isolated places. Not because life suddenly became easier, only because repetition becomes harder to carry when every day feels identical to the one before it. Canned beef hash. When supply tenders finally reached isolated stations after severe weather, canned goods often arrived with them. Canning technology improved dramatically after the American Civil War. And by the late 19th century, preserved meat products appeared more regularly in remote postings. Heavy tins stacked beneath the tower. Beef hash fried until dark around the edges. Hot food and dry socks probably improved morale more reliably than grand speeches ever could, especially after several days of wet weather and interrupted sleep. Sea biscuits and black coffee. Some nights became too rough for proper cooking. The tower shook. Sleep stayed shallow. Duties continued anyway. Coffee boiled dark, while sea biscuits waited nearby in metal tins, dry enough to survive almost indefinitely if moisture stayed out. By late storm season, exhaustion itself became routine. People stopped waiting for comfort and focused instead on getting through the weather one shift at a time. These meals were never famous. Few people bothered recording recipes for food like this, but inside those isolated towers, surrounded by fog, salt air, and dark water, simple meals beside iron stoves became part of survival itself. Warm bowls in cold hands, quiet kitchens beneath the lantern room while another storm rolled in from the sea.